Hi everybody, this video is an introduction to the Ielts exams, to the different parts of the exams, the listening, the writing, the speaking and the reading. And I want to introduce every part of the exam to try and explain a little better each part of the exam. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and you can see my page here. So this is a very good page for the information about the exam. It's the official page from Ielts. It's ielts.org at the top. So if we go back to the principal page, this is the home page. So when you enter, this is what you see. I want you to go to about the test. So we select about the test and there are two types of tests, okay? So in the Ielts exam, there's the general Ielts test and there's the academic test, okay? So the academic Ielts test is more for university applications and the general Ielts test is more for maybe traveling and moving to a different country. So for immigration or citizenship requirements, okay? So this is the page that they explain the two different tests. There's the Ielts academic and there's the Ielts general training, okay? So let's look at the academic first. The test is for people applying for higher education, university, or professional registration in an English-speaking environment. It reflects some of the features of academic language and assesses whether you are ready to begin studying or training, okay? And then if we look at the second option is the general training. So the Ielts general training test is for those who are going to English-speaking countries for secondary education. So not third education, secondary education, work experience or training programs, but also for migration to Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the UK. It's very common, okay? The test focuses on basic survival skills in broad is amplio in Spanish, social workplace contexts. Okay, so let's look at the academic format. So we click here, the academic format, and it will explain each part of the exam. So here's the format, and basically we have listening, academic reading, general reading, which are different, academic writing or general writing. So remember, the listening is the same in the academic and it's the same in the general test. So the listening is exactly the same in the academic and in the general, and the same with the speaking. The speaking exam is the same in the academic style and the general training style, okay? The difference is the reading. You have academic reading and general training reading, and the difference is the writing, academic writing and general training writing, okay? So if we just read the introduction so we're clear, it says there are two types, okay, we know that. So listening and speaking are the same for both tests, but the subject matter, so the material of the reading and writing sections are different. So it's the verb to differ, depending on which test you take. Okay, listening and reading and writing sections are complete. Okay, that's no problem. So let's look at the listening first. So we'll go through here and they say 30 minutes and you will listen to 4 recordings of native English speakers, and then after you write your answers to a series of questions. Okay, so there are 4 recordings and it's always the same structure. Recording 1 is a conversation between 2 people located or positioned or set in an everyday social context. Recording 2 is a monologue positioned, located or set in an everyday context, like a speech, discurso in Espanol, about local facilities. Okay, so a little different. And the third one, conversation between up to 4 people in an educational or training context. For example, university tutor, student discussing an assignment. So the third one is an educational context. The second one is a monologue in an everyday context. And the first one is a conversation between 2 people in an everyday context. And the fourth one is a monologue again, but on an academic subject. Okay, so that's really the listening, the structure. And here they say the assessors will be looking for evidence of your ability to understand the main idea and detailed factual information, the opinions, the attitudes of the speakers, and the purpose of what is the purpose of the speech, of the recording, and to follow the development of ideas. So it is tricky, but very similar to all the other types of English exams. Okay, so you have to get the feeling of the audio and try to identify the correct answer, of course. Okay, so here's the description. So that's the same explanation. And let's look in detail at part 1, task type 1. Okay, so you have different, so I'll show you here that the key part is here. A variety of question types are used, chosen from the following list. Okay, so we have possibility of multiple choice, possibility of matching, possibility of a plan, a map, or a diagram, label. So you have to put the correct word on the label of the diagram. Form, a note, a table, or a flowchart summary, completion, or sentence completion. So they are the list of possible activities that you have to do. And you have 4 parts, and there's 10 questions in each part of the listening. Okay, so the first part, well, they actually say variable. It's not exactly 10, but it's variable. I'm going to make my screen a bit smaller so I'm out of the way. Okay, so here's the multiple choice, and they're very normal. Everybody has experience, I think, with multiple choice, but it's difficult because options A, B, and C sometimes are very similar. Matching, so you have to match maybe the sentence with the correct paragraph. Here they say required to match a numbered list, so of items from the listening test, to a set of options. So it's very similar as well to many listening exercises that people have done over the years. Okay, and that's the detail and the focus. So it's a good explanation for the matching. Then, as I said, we have a plan or a map or a diagram or labeling, where you have to enter the correct word on the label or the diagram. So it's similar activity to catch the correct word. And task 4 is a flow chart or summary completion, or a note or a form. Okay, and here's the explanation of a form. Is often used to record factual details such as names. A set of notes is used to summarize any type of information using the layout to show how different items relate to one another. A table is used as a way of summarizing information which relates to clear categories, for example, place, time, and price. And a flow chart, it's used to summarize a process which has clear stages with the direction of the process shown by arrows. So very different styles, but fundamentally it's the same job. You have to put the correct answer on the page. Okay, and if we continue, the task type 5 is sentence completion. And here they say they're required to read a set of sentences, a collection of sentences, summarizing key information from all the listening text or from one part of it, and then fill a gap in each sentence using information from the listening. So this is similar from the Cambridge style exam also for the listening, and probably you have a lot of experience doing these as well, but just to introduce the listening part. Okay, and task 6, you have short answer questions. Okay, so read a question and write a short answer using information from the listening. Okay, and then they say there's a word limit of 3, no more than 3 words or a number. Okay, so that's the possible options. There's 6 possible styles, and you have 4 different recordings. And in each recording, the number of questions are variable. I think approximately 10. Okay, and then that's the marking. So if we go back to the top, that's the listening. It's the same for the academic IELTS exam, and it's the same for the general training IELTS exam. So now let's look at the speaking, because the speaking is also the same. So you have 3 parts in the speaking test. Part 1, the examiner will ask you general questions about yourself and a range, un rango in Espanol, of familiar topics such as home. I'm just going to zoom in because I think it's difficult to see maybe. Familiar topics such as home, family, work, studies, and interests. Okay, the time lasts, durar, between 4 and 5 minutes. That's part 1, 4 or 5 minutes about general questions about yourself and familiar topics. Okay, part 2, you will be given a card which asks you to talk about a particular topic. Okay, you have 1 minute to prepare the card before speaking for 2 minutes about the card. Okay, the examiner will then ask 1 or 2 questions on the same topic. And in part 3, you will be asked more or further questions about the topic in part 2. These will give you the opportunity to discuss more abstract ideas and issues. This part of the test, the duration, between 4 and 5 minutes also. Okay, so part 1 is between 4 and 5 minutes, a general introduction about yourself and familiar topics. Part 2 of the speaking is 1 minute preparation and a maximum of 2 minutes speaking about the topic on the card. And part 3 is similar topic from part 2, but more questions in relation to this topic, and you have 4 or 5 minutes. So it's a good opportunity to speak more and to express your variety of vocabulary, your variety of grammar structures, and your fluency. Okay, and the next section is in detail. They explain part 1, as we spoke about. Part 2, the long turn, where you have 1 minute to prepare and 2 minutes to answer. Part 3 is the discussion. And then the marking, the assessment, is probably similar to many English speaking exams. You have to answer the question specifically. You have to speak coherently with a fluency. You need a variety of your vocabulary and a variety of grammar, like a range. And they're the principal requirements that you need. So if we go back to the top, so the speaking is the same in the academic IELTS, and it's the same in the general IELTS, also the listening. So let's look at the academic reading and the general reading. So first we look at the academic reading, and maybe I can zoom. Let's see this. Hopefully it's a good size for you. So it consists of 40 questions. So designed to test a wide range, un amplio rango of reading skills. Reading for gist. Gist is like the general idea. Reading for main ideas, reading for detail. Skimming is when you read very, very quickly just to get the answer or to get the correct word. Understanding logical argument and recognizing the writer's opinions, attitudes, and purpose. So similar to other English exams in the comprehension, difficult because you have many possibilities of different answers, and this is the same. Okay, so it's tricky. So the IELTS test includes 3 long tests, which range from descriptive and factual to discursive and analytical. So you have different possible genres or different possible styles of the reading text. Okay, these are taken from books, journals, magazines, and newspapers. So the best advice, of course, is to read as much as possible in your preparation. Read books, read magazines, read journals, and read newspapers. A journal is probably an academic journal with different topics. So be as familiar as possible as you can with as many different structures as you can in English, okay? And they've selected for non-specialist audience and are appropriate for people entering university courses or seeking professional registration. So it's 60 minutes, and there's 3 parts, and there's 60 minutes with a variety of questions and using a variety of types or a number of task types. Okay, so the task types that are possible here are used from the following list. You've possible multiple choice, possible identifying information, identifying the view or the claim of the writer, matching information, matching the headings. Okay, so matching the headings from the text with the questions. Again, more matching features. So it doesn't, not necessarily headings, it could be other parts that you have to match. Matching sentence and endings. Okay, so very interesting. Sentence completion. Okay, and the summary completion, note completion, table completion, flowchart completion, diagram label completion, and short answer questions. So you have a long list of possible types, but ultimately and fundamentally, it's the same concept. You need to understand the idea of the writer, understand the detail, understand the purpose, and all the aspects that you need to understand to identify the specific and correct answer. Okay? So we continue to the sources, as we said, books, journals, magazines, newspapers, and different styles, a variety of styles, for example, narrative, descriptive, or discursive, or argumentative. Okay? So let's continue. And each question is worth 1 mark. So that's 40 questions, I believe. Yeah, 40 questions and 1 mark. Okay? So a good variety and it's a bit unpredictable. The style of the reading question is a bit unpredictable. There's multiple choice explanation, identifying information if you want to read a little bit more about each one, identifying the claim or the view, matching information, matching the headings, matching the features, matching sentence endings. So this is exactly the same as the description. Sentence completion, summary, note, table, flowchart completion, and diagram label completion. Or 11 is short answer questions. Okay, and then it's the marking. So from your score of 40, they divided and they separated into a scale of a band scale of 1 to 9. Okay, so that is the academic reading. And now let's look at the general training reading. So what are the differences? So very similar, 40 questions, and here extracts from books, magazines, newspaper, notices, advertisements, company handouts, and guide. So that's probably the big difference. It's the location of the text, probably more professional, more business, more general as the name of the exam. And in the academic reading, it's more university, it's more journal, and it's more about academics, obviously. Okay, so it's very clear the difference. I think the styles will be very, very similar. So you have 3 sections. Section 1 may contain 2 or 3 short texts or several short texts. So that's different from the academic. So maybe in the general training, you have more texts. Section 2 consists of or comprises of 2 texts. And in section 3, there is 1 long text. So that's the difference between the academic and the general. In the academic, you have 3 texts. But in the general, you have section 1 with multiple texts, and the same with section 2. Okay, sorry, section 2 has 2 texts. So let's look. They have 40 questions, and the possible types are multiple choice, identifying information, writer's claims or views, matching information, matching heading, matching features, the same as the academic, matching sentence endings, sentence completion, summary completion, note completion, table completion, flowchart completion, diagram and label completion. So the types are almost identical to the academic, okay, but it's the content that's different. Okay, so they say the first section is social survival, and the second section is workplace survival, and the third section is general reading. However, in the academic, it's all probably academic focused. Okay, and then each mark is worth 1. So that's the difference between the academic and the general. And here we have more explanation about each type. And if you want yourself to research and to prepare to study each one, I recommend it. Okay, that's the same as the academic to number 11, the short answers. Then we go back, change now to the writing. So we have academic writing and we have general training writing. So let's look at the academic writing. Okay. They're of general interest to and suitable test. The topics are suitable and appropriate for the people taking the tests, undergraduate and postgraduate studies, or seeking professional registration. So task 1 presented with a graph, a table, a chart, or a diagram, and asked to describe, summarize, or explain the information in your own words. Okay, so you need to describe, summarize, or explain the information from the chart or the graph or the table or the diagram in your own words. So it's necessary to use different words. Okay, you may be asked to describe and explain data, describe the stages of a process and how something works, or describe an object or an event. So a lot of variety in the possibilities of your question. Task 2, you'll be asked to write an essay in response to a point of view, argument, or a problem. So it's a typical essay. You're probably very familiar with writing an essay in all your studying of English, and must be in a formal style. So task 1 and task 2 must be in formal style for academic situations. Okay, and the next section they explain 60 minutes and 2 questions. It's necessary to complete task 1 and it's also necessary to complete task 2. And it's the same explanation, and here is more detail about task 1 if you want to read yourself to prepare, and the same for task 2, the advice in particular or the explanation in detail about the essay. Okay, and then it's the mark. So this is the criteria for the writing assessment for task 1 and task 2, and these headings are similar, almost the same as the Cambridge exams. The task achievement basically means that you understand the question and your answer reflects 100% the question. So you answer completely the question. That's really the task achievement, and also in the correct tone or register if it's formal. Well, definitely formal in the academic situation. Coherence and cohesion is related to the fluency and the linkers in particular, or the cohesive devices. However, first of all, therefore, as a result, as a consequence, formal linkers are important in that section. Your lexical resource is related to your variety and your range of vocabulary. So the more advanced vocabulary you can use appropriately, the better. And the more proficient vocabulary you can use, the better. Okay. The range of your grammar and accuracy, again, similar to the lexical situation. You need a range of grammar. So if you can use the active, the conditionals, the perfect, frequently and comfortably with accuracy, that's much better for you. Okay. And similar with task 2. So that's the same structure for most writing in English. Okay. And that's an explanation in detail of what they look for. There's the task achievement, coherence and cohesion. So if you have a doubt, I recommend that you look at that explanation immediately and with concentration. So that's the academic writing. And then we look at the general training writing. So 60 minutes, and again, the same structure, task 1 or task 2. In task 1, you write a letter requesting information or explaining the situation. The letter may be personal, semi-formal or formal. So that's the big difference really between the academic and the general. Academic is formal in a university environment, and the general is more everyday life and maybe more semi-formal or possibly personal. Okay, so that's the big difference. It's not really the content, it's not the questions, it's more the tone and the content of your answer. Okay, and in task 2, you'll be asked to write an essay similar to the academic exam, and the essay can be fairly personal. So that's the difference. Fairly is like bastante in Spanish, quite personal in style. Okay, so you can see there's a lot of similarities between the two. It just depends on what you want to take the exam for. Do you want to enter a university? Do you need it for immigration to a different country? Or do you need it for a professional registration? And here's the writing explanation, 60 minutes, 2 parts. Task 1 is probably the letter, and task 2 is an essay. And there's more explanation about task 1 in detail and task 2, and the same criteria for the answers. For me, this is maybe the most important part, that you're clear with your requirement, what the examiner is exactly looking for. Okay, so I recommend that you read the performance descriptors and be very familiar with that in relation to the writing. Okay, and that's the exam. So you can see there's the speaking, there's the writing, academic writing, general writing, there's the reading, academic reading and general reading, and there's the listening. Okay, and that basically is the structure of the exam. In my videos, I will try to do some examples in the future, but first I think it was necessary that I explain the structure of the exam. But my idea is to produce more videos to explain how to do and how to approach each exercise, and hopefully you can follow and you can join the classes, and I look forward to making the material. So that is everything in relation to the exam. There is one other section that might be interesting in the future, obviously how it is scored and the results. So obviously in the Ielts it's a level 9, a band of 9, 9 being the best and lower after that. So you have to try and focus on the best score possible for you. Okay, thank you for watching, and hopefully you can stay in touch with the content on my Facebook page, on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and I will try to update more videos as soon as possible with exercises. So thank you very much. Have a great day and talk to you soon. Bye.